Welcome to the 6 Miles to Supper podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Cox, and I've lost over 80 pounds with intermittent fasting 6 days a week, eating whatever I wanted at my meals, taking a cheat day every Sunday, and walking 6 miles a day. And I'm here to help you on your weight loss journey. In today's episode, we're going to talk about how monthly checkpoints can be really useful in the weight loss journey. So this idea of monthly checkpoints, I actually got the idea from Martin Burkhan, who is the guy who put together the Lean Gains website, which is where I initially heard about intermittent fasting from. I, of course, practice intermittent fasting a little bit differently than he does, but the idea of these checkpoints was really interesting to me. I decided in January of 2016, I was going to just do monthly checkpoints every month. And this was a really helpful thing. I think the reason why, in hindsight, it was so helpful was because it lengthened out my horizon a little bit. Previous to this time, I tended to kind of be squirrel-like. It was like, oh, is this working? Oh, this isn't quite working. I got to go over here and do this thing. And I was just kind of all over the place. But when I started thinking in terms of, okay, monthly, I'm going to check on my progress and I'm going to pay more attention to that than these daily numbers, it was really helpful to me. And I do think it's really important to keep track of those daily things. But the real trick, I think, is to kind of know when to ignore the daily and just focus on the long term versus, starting to see a pattern in your daily things and then, making a change based on that. So what I mean is, your weight could shoot up by 5 pounds overnight. It could. Water weight can do that sometimes. It's rare, maybe, but it does happen. And if you let yourself panic when that happens, then that's going to be ultimately a bad thing, because it might have been that your plan was fine and everything was going fine. It was just, that one weird day, versus if you're paying more attention to how you're doing month after month, is going to be more helpful. Now, I don't do monthly checkpoints as religiously as I used to. I used to be very on the 19th of every month, that was in 2016, I did my checkpoints. And then after that point, I more made just a monthly habit of sitting down with my 7-day average spreadsheet just to make sure everything was, where it was. But this is really helpful when you're trying to lose weight. And once you are being consistent in your maintenance period, it is less important, I think, to do these, except for if you are finding that your weight is creeping up, then it might be more helpful to really just every month be doing this. Now, the way to do monthly checkpoints, there's really no right or wrong way to do it, but I'll tell you how I did mine. So what I did was I would snap a photo of myself and I would put it onto my computer. And I had in my Google Docs, I had a document called 2016 goals. And so at the end of this document, I just started putting my checkpoints information in. So the way mine looked is I would have the date. So the first date was January 19th, 2016. And then below that, I would put my current picture. I would snap my photo of myself in a full length mirror so that I could see my entire body. That way I could over time see, how my body was changing, which was actually important because sometimes the numbers on the scale, they're moving down, but it's hard to tell a difference day to day. But being able to see month to month, it was, a lot easier to see the progress. And then below that picture, I would write down what my 7-day average weight was on that day. And this was super helpful as I went along because, in the beginning, it's going to feel like, well, this is just a little bit of data here, a little bit of data there. But then once you get 3 or 4 months of data, it's really interesting to start to see okay, this is how much the weight is dropping. And this is, how much of a difference is making. And then below that, I just had some notes about some, goal clothes, some clothes that had gotten too small for me that I wanted to fit back into. And I just made notes. I would try to put them on. And then I made notes okay, these can be buttoned but not zipped, or this pair of shorts, I can get them over my hips, but they're way too tight to be worn. That way I could remember, because so many times it's hard to remember, what was it actually like when you were at a certain weight. And then, as you go along, the progress you're making, it's just more helpful to see okay, this was truly the thing that was happening. And now, yes, I can actually get those pants up and zipped and wear them out to the store. Now, for me, I didn't only focus on weight loss related goals. This was my general kind of goals in life. And so there were some things that I was doing that were unrelated. Like, for example, I was learning ASL. And so I would write down, how many lessons I completed, or, if I earned a Fitbit badge. But I also had my weight loss goals broken down into sub goals. So like, for example, achieve a 7-day average of 200. That was a goal for me. And I ended up earning that in the second checkpoint that I did. So I just did this in a simple table on Google Docs. So I just had like 3 columns in the table and then a few rows per page so that I could have a pretty big picture and some notes about what was going on. And it was super helpful. And I still have it. That's the neat thing about digital documents and things. You can store photos and text and everything all together. It doesn't need to be super high tech. I'm glad that I did it on Google Docs because that has hung around, whereas some other apps that I've used in the past, they kind of go by the wayside. So right now, if you are on the weight loss journey and you're kind of having trouble with making progress, I would encourage you to set up a monthly checkpoint. Like, do the first one today and just write down what's your 7-day average. What are the things that you've accomplished in the past month? And then, if you don't currently have your goals written down, go ahead and jot those down so that you know what you're working towards. And then, you can set a reminder on your phone each month, on this very day to do your checkpoints. And I know that it does take a little bit of time to sit down and do this. It really doesn't take that much time. I think you'd be surprised once you sit down and you just make yourself do it. You can probably get this done in maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15. But even if it took an hour, I think that it really is helpful to take the time, and it's worth it. I'm so glad that I took the time to do these things back then, for one thing, because it helps me to remember where I was and what things were happening. And it kept me motivated as I went along. It really did keep me going. I think that is one area where you can even be losing weight, but you can still feel less motivated when you don't have those side by side. Okay, this is really the progress I'm making. When you just have it in front of you visually, I think it's a lot more motivating. So thanks for listening to this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Do you want to lose the weight without getting rid of the foods you love and that you'll go back to eating again anyway? My book, The Laid Back Guide to Intermittent Fasting, teaches you how to practice intermittent fasting so that you lose the weight sustainably and keep it off for good. You can get the audiobook read by me for free when you sign up for your 30-day trial of Audible. The link is in the show notes. And if you've gotten value from this podcast and you'd like to let other people know about it, it would be great if you could leave a review on either iTunes or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks.